welcome to Ravenheart Renditions. This is Shop Time again, and we're talking with Mr. Christopher Schwarz. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, Andrew. You can call me Chris.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Christopher is only what people call me when I'm in trouble.
That's usually I've gotten used to the Andrew thing because one job I had I was the third Andy, so from that point forward I've gotten used to Andrew.
I understand completely.
It's when you use the middle name that I'm being yelled at.
Okay, good to know.
So, well, we had a brief conversation at Woodworking in America this year, and we talked about possibly having you on the podcast, and instead of doing the normal tool chest and and workbench conversation, I thought I'd say, how did you end up getting into some of the what I look at as almost historical kind of
Crap.
redoing?
Yeah. Um, that's a good question, and I wish I had a good answer, but the honest answer is that I'm a big reader, always have been, and always checked out my limit at the public library when I was a kid. And when you get into something like woodworking or handwork, especially, the written resources, the written modern resources could only take anyone so far.
Hmm.
Is that there was Graham Blackburn, which I grew up with in the 70s, and that those were the books we had on our bookshelves in Arkansas. And just everything else was about the radial arm saw and the table saw and the router. And so you had to look elsewhere. And so I've always looked back at these old books as just hopefully scratching the surface is all it is, but hopefully some of the wisdom of stuff that we've just sort of forgotten about.
Hmm. Well, and I've picked up in a couple of years the cabinet and joiner and cabinet maker, the um, essential woodworker, or wait,
Hmm.
and then the anarchist tool chest. Anarchist tool chest is one of my favorite ones. That's awesome.
Oh, well, thanks.
And it is. It's kind of fun. It takes you a little farther. There's something different there than you pick up. I mean, I have how many subscriptions to how many woodworking magazines, and they cover stuff, but it's done differently in these books, and it's really fun to read.
Well, good. That's what I hope for. So I know I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's actually I read the Anarchist Tool Chest, and normally I'm a very slow reader, and I read that thing straight through, and my wife actually had to pick it up and read it. And as a non-woodworker and someone who could probably care less about the stuff, she actually enjoyed it too. She said, "This is really good."
Well, good. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean it to be good for wives, but or spouses, but I mean, really, I started out as a newspaper journalist, and so the number one thing you learn as a journalist is as soon as the reader starts to nod off, you've lost them, and so it's you really no matter what you write about, whether it's the most mundane thing in the world, you try to make it compelling and readable, and that's something I learned from Tom Wolfe. He started out writing, even though he wrote these amazing new journalism kind of masterpieces that were just crazy writing at the time in the 70s, but he started out writing technical medical stuff, and anything can be made interesting if you just put your heart into it.
Well, and it's done well. It's fun to read the different things, and so I have three of yours, and there's a few other ones out there. And actually, at Woodworking in America, you had a rather large book there.
Oh yeah.
What I got a chance to look at it a little bit, and I think you were just about sold out about the time I got there. What's the deal with that big book?
That is a book that we've titled "To Make as Perfectly as Possible," and it is the first ever English language translation of Andre Roubaud's 18th century masterwork on the craft. And if you look at woodworking written history, the single most important 18th century book was Andre Roubaud's five volume set, and it's even still today used in legal cases as sort of the standard for what is good workmanship in most of the world.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how important it is. And it's never been translated into English. And so with the help of a whole group of scholars and Don Williams from who was with the Smithsonian and a friend of his who knew French and a bunch of other people all over the world, but mostly Don and Michelle, did just a crazy 6 year heavy lifting job of translating this very difficult ancient French book and putting it into something that is still completely alive and vibrant and far beyond what woodworking writing is today. I mean, it is like an alien civilization. The level of craftsmanship is so high, and the level of technical understanding and everything. It's a peek into a totally foreign country that is also way more advanced than ours. And so we put this first volume out, and we're going to be putting out the others year by year as we get them done. But it really has been just a stunning project to work on with Don, and we're just really proud to be the people that he allowed to publish it.
Well, that's really cool. So we're going to see more of them. You're saying we're seeing all five over the next few years.
Almost certainly. The first one was on, marquetry and finishing and clocks and German workbenches and shop jigs because the French, for all their brilliance, they didn't organize the books very well. The second book is going to be strictly on furniture and woodworking tools, and then probably one on garden woodworking, trellises, outdoor woodworking, one on carriage making, which is probably the most ambitious, and then one on architectural woodworking. The first two are mostly for woodworkers, but that one, the one on furniture and tools, will almost certainly be out this time next year, and it's going to be twice as large. If you think that one was large, that one's going to be twice as thick. And that one, I think, we've been working on it for a while, and the translations are starting to flow through me, and that's going to be pretty mind blowing, I
Cool.
think.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
So you have Lost Art Press is there's actually a few different people. I mean, you obviously have your books through there, and then who all? Because I know like the Essential Woodworker, that's not you didn't write that one.
No, no,
Um,
no.
so how many authors do you have in through Lost Art Press right now? Obviously the translations are a little different than that, but
Yeah. Well, we're a weird company. Lost Art Press is just two people, and it's myself and a good woodworking friend of mine, John Hoffman, who I've known for a long time, and we both work out of our homes. And a lot of what we do is, bring together a bunch of like-minded people in a very decentralized way to do things that couldn't be done if you were in a corporate environment, which I was for the last 20 years.
Mhm.
And so, Robert Waring, who did The Essential Woodworker, he, well, boy, he traces his lineage back to the 19th century as far as training, is an English woodworker, and he's still alive. And that book is one of the most kind of fundamental handwork books that I know of as far as technique. And it changed my life when it first came out, and it went out of print for many years and was selling for 200 or 300 bucks. And so we found Robert and got it back in print. But I mean, we have lots of other people working, for us. We have, John/Jenny Alexander, Peter Follensby. I have a book coming out from Peter Galbert. We had Matt Bickford, who's a plane maker, who did our book on moldings. We have, George Walker and Jim Tolpin did a book on design for us,
Mhm.
and so we have Maurice Pommier, who did the book, the children's book, Grandpa's Workshop, all relating to woodworking, but all in some sort of unusual fashion that would never get published by corporate America publishing.
Mhm. Well, they're good to see. I hope to acquire more of them.
Well,
Um,
good.
there's a few of them. Excuse me. There's a few of them. The one I'm looking forward to getting around to is I need to read the ones I have first, but the Art of Joinery looked really interesting to me.
Mm.
There's a couple of the other ones that I've got to get to, but I know I read slowly, so I'm not probably your biggest customer, but it'll be there. It's good from the woodworking community to see somebody doing something like this. This is awesome. So you went from popular woodworking to doing your own thing,
Hmm.
and you're still part of the hand tool area of everything because I think you did for the essential woodworker you did the opposite of what everybody calls the Schwarz effect. Instead of having it all of a sudden go to $200, you brought the price down on something.
Yeah, that's what I would rather do, actually. So,
um, so you do a lot of things related to hand tools, and so I really appreciate the hand tools. I have a lot of power tools in my shop, but I actually use the hand tools quite a bit. And my rule is generally if it's going to make me sweat a lot, I'm going to use a machine.
yeah.
Other than that, I prefer to use my hand tools. And there's some things like taking twist out of a board to be able to run it through the planer. Um, it's just safer and easier to do. Or a twisted board, cutting it, breaking it down. I don't even want a chance taking that through a chop saw or something and end up cutting my hand off. So I know why I use some of the hand tools, but what's the draw of hand tools for you? Like the hand tool guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny that people, associate me so strongly with hand tools. I mean, I do talk about them a lot. And I mean, if you people who come to my shop are usually surprised to see that I have a both. I don't have a lot of both, but I mean, I don't have a lot of tools. My people are mostly shocked that my shop sucks, but I mean, just like theirs. But for me, I mean, I just really, honestly and truly love all aspects of the craft. I think CNC is amazing and cool, and I think a lot of the machines we have can make things possible that were never possible,
Mhm.
and there are hand tools are in that same category. It's kind of like when you drive, when you're traveling somewhere, and if you drive in a car, you can get someplace really really fast, but you're really limited by the roads, that take you on sort of straight lines, and so you can get there really really fast, but you have these limitations, but then when you switch to handwork, it's like taking a walk. It's like getting out of your car and walking. And this is an analogy made by Peter Korn in his first book on handwork, and it's really excellent. And it's just like taking a walk, is that you can go anywhere with your feet. It might take you a little longer, but you can get places that your car could never take you.
Mhm.
And and that's really the best sort of explanation for my love of handwork, is that you can only go so far with machines until it becomes very difficult.
Mhm.
And if you want to become really fast, if you want to become really good, if you want to incorporate curves into your work and other details, you have got to switch to handwork. I mean, you've got to add it at least into your repertoire, and that's all it really is about, is embracing all of the tools, and not seeing a difference between hand and power, is seeing what is the shortest and best line to the finish line, and that's where it comes into it. I think the unusual thing, though, is that the reason I don't write about power tools, and I love power tools, and I've been involved in power tools my whole adult life, is that, my gosh, the world does not need another book on routers or another book on table saws. I mean, that's been done so well that
Mhm.
but there is this huge undiscovered country. Sorry for the Star Trek reference. Just out there that is waiting to be picked, and lots of low hanging fruit with hand tools. And so that's why I focus on it, is because there's a lot that's unknown about it, and that's very exciting to me, is going into places that haven't been plumbed or touched in a century or two.
That's awesome. Yeah, the I started in woodworking with not even knowing I was starting in woodworking. Some people I've told this to before, but it's I worked on a farm from the time I was 12, and if I wanted to make a little extra money after chores, I could help with the custom furniture business he had on the side.
Hmm.
Because of legality, I wasn't allowed to touch the power tools though.
Hmm.
So he'd hand me a plane, he'd hand me a saw, he'd show me how to do it, and then he'd yell at me when I did it wrong and show me how to do it right again. So
Right.
from 12 to 22, I did this stuff on the side and did a whole bunch of hand planes and a whole bunch of work and did a lot of stuff to get things prepped for him. Later, I got completely out of woodworking, got back into it, and automatically I didn't want to use those because I wasn't allowed to use the power tools, but it's just easier. I'll grab the saw here, I'll cut it. And
Hmm.
later, I'm sitting there going, why do I know how to do some of this stuff? And I'm like, oh, he pretty much Mr. Miyagi'd me into knowing how to do this stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
And now it's okay, the little things that I wouldn't have picked up there, small techniques that I'm like, oh, okay, if I put that together with it. And I'm like, this is awesome. I wouldn't know how to do some of this stuff if I didn't have the hand tools with it. And now it's nice to say, okay, my all of my saws that are hanging on a wall, other than the few new ones that I bought, have been in my or my wife's family for over 100 years.
Very cool.
And most of the planes are things I picked up from family members or somebody who didn't want it, that, they're all 100 years old or older too. I'm like, this is awesome. These things have been doing something to a piece of wood for over 100 years.
Oh yeah, it is. It is a cool aspect of it that the tools are far more durable than anything electric.
Yeah. I've replaced my chop saw, but I've never replaced my my number six.
Yeah, nor will your great great grandchildren have to either.
No.
So,
um, so you said you use some power tools. So what kind of power tools do you have in the shop?
um, well, I use I use the tools, the machines for heavy lifting. I don't
Hmm.
have a lot. I mean, power tools really isn't what I have. I
Hmm.
mean, I have a joiner, I have a planer, thickness, whatever thickness or whatever you want to call it, and a table saw. I have a mortiser for when I do, a whole whack of mortises. If I have to do two or three mortise chairs, cutting them by hand is a little silly. But it's not stuff that you would think is out of place
Hmm.
in a home shop. I mean, it's all very kind of modest equipment. I mean, it's a portable power planer.
Yeah.
It's not anything wow. And I don't think it needs to be to do the kind of work that I do, which I might only build 20 or 30 pieces in a year, so it's not like I need heavy duty CNC or anything big. Plus, I just find that the simpler machines are easier to maintain.
Hmm.
I don't have a router table. I don't have a chop saw. I don't have. I mean, the list of what I don't have is very very long. And I have one router, which I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere, but I don't even know what I last used it for. I couldn't tell you. And so it basically my work comes down to the machines doing the heavy lifting of getting the stock to thickness, width, and length, and then the hand tools taking over and doing all the joinery, with a few exceptions when I Morris chairs or whatever,
Hmm.
and and the planes finishing up everything as far as surfaces go. I have a sander, but I think I use that more for auto body work than for woodworking. So it's a pretty modest shop, and but you can do a lot of things with just a few tools.
Oh yeah, it's the other thing. I think several of us have, many people have seen the presentations you've done on the tool chest and the tools in the tool chest. So
Mhm.
outside of the normal tools in the tool chest, what are some of the other things that you may go to? Um, just something different. Because with the tools in the tool chest, if you really think about it, you can do pretty much anything you want to. And an
Almost.
anarchist tool chest covers that set, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, one of the things I do a lot of, both for customers, well, mostly for customers, is chair. I build chairs, and I build Welsh stick chairs, are one of the things I specialize in. And you can't, I mean, you need some specialist tools for that.
yeah.
And so I have a Travisher, and I have a tapered reamer, and a couple other, some spoke shaves and things that aren't in, the core set, but I have another little toolbox. I have a toolbox, a small toolbox of leatherworking tools because a lot of the campaign furniture stuff I've been building needs me to stitch or rivet or cut leather for the seats or what or the straps or whatever it requires. So I have some leatherworking tools. Um, not much else. I think that one other thing I do have is I have a sort of a set of tools that I don't use. And these are tools that are usually made for me by other people who
Oh,
are other tool makers that really just blew me away at one time or the other. And that's the only like really collecting I do. I have a plane from James Kranoff that he
oh,
made,
cool.
which is just amazing. And I have an infill plane that Rainey Nelson made me, and a plow plane that Jim Leamy made. And some really, kind of beautiful tools that I like to look at and examine and study. Those are kind of the weird oddball things that I have. But really, what you see in that chest, plus some chair making tools and some leatherworking tools, you won't find much else in my shop that's kind of unusual. Some crap for working on the house, which I absolutely hate. And so those are in a bucket somewhere downstairs. But really, I just try to keep a very small set, and that I have to tell you, even it's been 2.5 years since I've written the Anarchist Tool Chest, and about 3.5, maybe almost 4 years since I started. It'll be 4 years in December when I started selling off my tools, and
Hmm.
that was probably the most important and best thing I ever did for my craft, because I am now maintaining far fewer tools than I ever was before, and you forget how much maintenance you're doing when you own 4 or 5 smoothing planes or 2 or 3 jack planes or 2 or 3 sets of chisels. It's everything. I mean, it's a lot of garden to tend.
Oh yeah.
And I have like 4 chisels, and I use one of them most of the time. And so it's very simple and straightforward, and I can focus more on the work instead of being a tool caretaker.
Hmm. Yeah, there is a lot of that to the craft. I mean, the more stuff you have, the more stuff you have to take care of.
Absolutely. And we don't realize how much stuff or how much time we're doing maintenance on things until you're not. And I beg people to just try it. You don't have to sell everything away, but just put stuff away or pretend you don't have it, or put it in another room and try to work with a small set. And you will become so much more productive. I did, and I was already pretty productive, but it's through the roof now.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember the exodus of tools, and a few of them I thought, oh, I should. No, you know what? It is a good idea. I have something. I don't need
Well, good.
that.
I felt really weird pushing these off on other people, but I was hoping that, maybe they weren't just gatherers, that they
Hmm.
that they needed them. And eventually what it's turned to is, after that first big tool purge, which was sort of upsetting because a lot of people got upset because of the, just all the stupidness about the way I was selling them. But after that, I just started giving them away, and so that's what I do now. Is when I meet somebody and they need a smoothing plane, or they need something that I've got stashed in a box, is it's much easier just to give it to them and be done with it, and not have to worry about generating hard feelings amongst people who want this, that, or the other.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, they had a uh, Andy Chidwick did a thing where he went to different workshops and throughout as he went with the traveling wood shows.
Oh
and
yeah.
and he stopped by mine, and I think I got the better deal out of it because I gave him my very first dovetail jig that I swore at so much, and I'm like, it's easier to do them by hand, but it was nice to at least do dovetails on it once to say, okay, that's how they should look.
Oh yeah.
And then
And
I said, here, you pass this on to the next person, and I got a rather beat up uh, draw knife, and I've been messing with the draw knife to try to get it shaped, and say, hey, this thing's old. I'm fixing up, and I'm like, I'm actually glad the other thing's gone, and I didn't have one of these. So
oh yeah, I'd rather have a draw knife than a dovetail jig any day.
me too. So, um, well, we had a chance to talk a little bit at Woodworking in America, and I had a chance to see your workbench presentation, and talking to you, I can't at least ask a little bit about the workbenches because everybody has to ask you about them by now.
Of course.
Um, I like the idea when in your presentation you talked about, it doesn't have to be, imported special beach from the left side of Europe and, everything else because I work on a pretty simple bench. It's a double two layers of 3/4 inch plywood on top of some made very large base that I made out of 2x4s and milled down and I'm more than happy with it.
Hmm.
Um, Sure, a split top Rubo is pretty and it would be great, but this one does what I need it to do.
Hmm.
So so you have a lot of split top Rubo information out there. Are there other benches that you like as well?
Well,
Because there's a lot of different ones out there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's like one of the things that I dealt with in my first book, and really what it is you need to ask yourself honestly, look yourself in the mirror and say, can my workbench hold pieces so it makes it easy for me to work on the faces, the edges, and the ends? And most traditional European workbenches are great for working on faces of boards. They stink at working on edges, especially long edges, and they're okay on ends. And that's sort of what everybody's become used to, and they have all these stupid workarounds and it's really just starting to think about the bench not as a Klaus bench or a Shaker bench or a Roubeau bench or a Nicholson or whatever, but instead is to think of it as simply a three-dimensional clamping surface. And once you get past that, and you can see how a Roubeau or any kind of workbench can do those operations easily. You can say, okay, now I can see how I can make my piece of crap do that,
Hmm.
and that's all that matters is clamping stuff so that you're not having to pull out 10 different clamps, some several rubber bands, and MacGyver the thing. And it's just to make the workflow much easier. And that's all I ever get at with workbenches. I mean, I have people, I have a love for the Roubeau because it's the simplest, most traditional rock solid form that does all those things very easy. Much less shenanigans compared to the year that it would take to build sort of a European style workbench. I mean, it's just basically it's basically 9 pieces of wood, and that's it.
Hmm.
And you don't need any more to make it. There's only one joint, the mortise and tenon, and so you can't get any simpler than that compared to dovetailing skirts and making all these crazy tool trays and cantilevered shoulder vices and on and on and on. So that's where my love for that form comes from. But really, I don't care what your bench looks like as long as you can clamp faces, edges, and ends and do it faster than me.
I don't know about faster. I have a little bit of work to do, but I built mine mainly for power tool work because that's what I was going to do because I wasn't going back to that hand tool thing, which now I built a small bench on a bench. I call it that. It's got a face vise and everything else. And I'm
Hmm.
like, well, this works great. I can do routers and stuff on this end and hand tool work on that end. It's perfect.
Sure.
So. Well, I'm sure you probably have other things to do, and I like to say thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and hopefully we get a chance to do it again sometime.
Sounds good, Andy the third or fourth or whatever, or Andrew. But
Yep.
no, I appreciate the time. And,
Yeah. Hey.
anytime.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, and I'm sure I'll reach out with some goofy questions someday and see if you have time again.
Always happy to.
Thank you very much.